Welcome to Clinician Engineer Hub, where we gather for an exciting new webinar with Chen. At first, the Clinician Engineer Hub was launched in 2019 in a collaboration between clinicians and engineers at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Birmingham, Imperial College London, and King's College London. This international hub brings together the clinical and biomedical engineering fields and arts and many different disciplines related to engineering, and focuses on the challenges doctors face in diagnosing and treating patients and how to solve these issues with cutting-edge engineering solutions. And now I am Dr. Banu Kose, representing the hub in Istanbul. Today we have a special guest, Chen Hong. Chen earned her master's in engineering in information and computer engineering, and she is currently a research assistant at Cambridge University. And alongside her remarkable achievements in the field, Chen is also a talented artist with a multitude of creative projects under her belt. And without further ado, I would like to pass the stage Chen. Welcome, Chen.
Hi, I'm Chen. It was really nice to be here today. And today I'm just gonna talk a little bit about the stuff I like to do in my spare time at university and the work I've done previously. I always seek to try and find projects that kind of relate art and engineering in some way. And the first time that I did actually find out that, this kind of thing was possible was when I had my internship at Adobe as a research engineer. That was really fun because I worked on trying to develop an application that can help artists understand other artists' creative processes better by looking at the way an artist draws on their draws a drawing, analyzing the time lapse and trying to learn from that. And then further on, when I was at university, I think in my fourth year, I picked modules that I felt were most relevant to being able to do research within the field of art and engineering. For example, computer vision, understanding images, and also 3D computer graphics, and also design case studies where we have to understand, how users use products, and designing things that are most suitable for users. That kind of stuff, like human-computer interaction, I'm also really interested in. So I felt that area was the most bridging between art and engineering. And in my spare time, I do a lot of art. So I've got some illustrations here. I do mostly digital illustrations. Here's just some of the work that I've done before. And I'm self-taught artist. I just draw things in my spare time. But since 2019, I've tried to do more seriously, draw art more seriously, watching YouTube videos to try and teach myself, understand more about how to draw better. And I experiment a lot with color. So I'm always trying to find nice color combinations. The most obvious bridge between art and engineering is, I feel is game development. So, I've done a few projects. I'm working on a game right now, but it's in early stages with a few friends. But I did some game development, and that was really fun. I got to do music, art, and animations all by myself, and also program things together. So here's some screen caps from some visual development I did for one of the game ideas I did. And for this, most notably, I developed branching dialogue systems. So in this project, for example, I didn't realize that at the time when I was like playing around with my projects, but I was trying to figure out how to create workflows and pipelines to make my development easier, better, and more artistically appealing, which I realized was later on when I was working earlier this year at King as a technical artist intern. King, they made Candy Crush. And I realized just like making pipelines, making things more streamlined, creating tools is basically a key and essential part of that kind of role. And I'll explain more about the hidden role in a bit. But so for some of these tools I did make, this is like a branching dialogue system where in this free graphing tool I would create a node-based system which I can see represented visually. And I drew everything on the left here and put it together. But here it can be like exported as like an JSON, as an XML file, which can be converted into a JSON file. Then I use that, like traverse through and then create the system in here, which plays through basically as complex of a conversational diagram as you want with all the choices. And so that was really challenging to make, but also really fun. And then trying to figure out how to get that into the UI was really difficult, but I was really happy with my result here. And then here, like another more artistic example is like trying to figure out like how can I create effects that are aesthetic and pleasing with low effort, so without having to draw frames, like frame by frame animation and stuff. So I had this like really high resolution pixel art aesthetic, and I was like, actually, if I could write a shader that could quantize the levels of the brightness and then map pixels of like a palette of n pixels to the black and white gradient, then I could create this effect. And it's I think it worked out pretty well. I was able to layer videos on top of each other, and I just clipped these from like nature videos on YouTube, posterized them a bit, and then added this shader onto that, and then I think it looked really nice with the rest of my game here. I put some projects on here that I did. So I did a hackathon like earlier last year. And usually in hackathons, I joined Hack Cambridge pretty much every single year. And I have been since I was in first year at university. And I find that the prompts and the companies that sponsor the hackathon are never really very artistic. So I managed to find, using the prompt given during the day of the hackathon, a challenge that could be artistic. And I think I'm really also interested in like, you know, how projects that can make art more accessible to people in general. Like, how can you make art more accessible to people, get more people doing art, more creative stuff? And that was kind of similar, going back to that project I did a while ago at Adobe Research, where, you know, I was developing tools to help artists understand or learn stuff from other artists. In a similar way, this is like more accessible artist app. So what I created here was a hands-free drawing application. The challenge was basically use DeepGram API to create something, and this was like a speech API. And all you need to do is talk to the system, and then this like just say or describe the movement of the brush and it will move around. And that cat you see, I actually drew by just talking to the computer. And then I worked in a team of 4, and I mainly work on the front end here. So I created basically what the entire thing looks like, and that was really fun. I was inspired by Procreate, which is the drawing app on the iPad. And then similarly, I feel like design and user interface design, UX flow, so user experience, and how people get from one screen in the application to another, or being able to think and find ideas on how to improve applications that are more usable for users. So basically, user-centric design, I think, is a really interesting and often overlooked challenge. And for me, ties really heavily into the art part, and also making applications and stuff more accessible to different people, or more people, and just making things nice to use is a really non-trivial problem and a huge design problem. And design, for me, as all sorts of design, is super artistic. So I feel on this project, it was a university project, but I worked really hard on, I created the entire graphical user interface, and also figured out how to put things together. And I drew all the buttons here, and basically it's a logic simulator. Basically you write your own definition for a logic circuit, and it will run and execute it. But then designing where you put your inputs, where you can set up more signals to monitor how the flow of the program will be. If you press the run button, it should disable the continue button, and if you reset it, it should disable the continue button, so you can press run. And if you compile it, there might be an error, and if you're currently running a simulation, you shouldn't be running it. So it's kind of managing these kind of states. To me, is also a really big design thing. So that's kind of why I put it on here. A few other things I did, I felt was more technical, but more on the motion graphics side. So for this, I created these 2 videos, but with a lot of animations in Adobe After Effects. So I learned a lot about animation, keyframing, using the little different plugins to achieve different effects. So these videos were for MWA, which is a charity, a student-run charity where you can, sorry, the audio was distracting me. The charity where it's people, they have the summer party at the end of the year, and then they encourage students to donate by attending this, and then they will match the donation of whatever amount. And so this kind of thing, I remember planning out this scene and having the 3 things in a triangle, and then zooming out, and then storyboarding this and playing, and then animating it. This project took a very long time, but that was also super fun, and then that sometimes felt quite technical, especially when I was doing this project, which was another video. But in this project, I really wanted to do digital literacy. So how can I use these creative tools, animation and stuff, to be able to describe something clearly in an educational format. So with this, I created an educational video on how display technology works. And of course, I had to include a really cute cat, which I had animated in Adobe Animate. But then I learned how to do isometric 3D animation in After Effects and try to really clearly explain how things work by visually like rotating elements. And I think the most challenging part, and I was most proud of this part, was explaining this of having the LCD screen fade and then like turn it into a cube and separate out into the layers. And seeing that animation of how the particles inside the LCD work. And this part was the most challenging. I almost broke my computer to render it, but it was really fun. So I really enjoyed that. So I guess another part is like motion graphics animation, but trying to explain technical stuff. So specifically digital literacy is another way where you can do art and engineering. And then some other things. So a lot of these things that I enjoy, I feel like is artistic and also designy, is like user interface design. So here was another hackathon thing that I did even longer ago, which was like a scheduling app. And I mainly did the logo for this because my friends carried a lot of the project, but I also learned a lot about the animations and also some things about the front end. And then here is where I feel like I also really, really liked engineering, like hands-on physical engineering projects, and all of the projects were super on the software, but I also really like electronics. So I'm also interested in music, and I wanted to see, okay, how can I do a project that has like music and engineering? And I used to have an organ scholarship back at my church before I started university. So I learned organ for a bit, but I was like, oh, the church is a bit far and I want to practice more often. And how can I do that? And so I had this project with my dad where I played the organ. I tried to create organ pedal boards using capacitive sensing and aluminium foil and cardboard only. So it was supposed to be a super low cost solution, but there was a huge number of challenges in creating this because this here, with so many keys on the board, there's so much interference and crosstalk between all the wires that run underneath. And capacitive sensing is where basically the big aluminium foil is hooked up to a piece of wire that goes directly into the microcontroller, the Arduino, and that acts as one half of the capacitor. And my feet my feet are the other end of the capacitor, and it goes down to ground virtually. So when I place my feet onto the aluminium foil or within a threshold, a close or a custom threshold, like the closer my feet are, it will change the capacitance, which is measurable because you can create basically, you can pass like a square wave through it, and then you can see it charge and discharge. And then with that, you can see at what time it reaches half, and you can calculate the time factor, which you can use to calculate the capacitance and see that's changing. So with that, I was able to do that. But because of all the interference, that was a really challenging problem. I had to like experiment with different thicknesses of the cardboard. And then the other challenge was we wanted, I made this with my dad, so we wanted to be able to fold this up. So when not using it, it doesn't take up that much space. And like hold it like as a suitcase. But you imagine you're bending the foil, you could have cracks in the foil. And then if you have cracks in it, then that will just affect like your entire circuit and things will break. So this was our final solution. I was able to play music on there. It was really fun. And then I think on here, the last project I had here, it's not necessarily engineering. exactly, but I would say it's so super relevant because it taught me a lot about business and how to deal with people, project, I guess somewhat project management, but like also like managing my own like finances and stuff. So basically I would create crochet loads of gamers call it scarves, and not just scarves like llamas. I made gloves. I made alpacas. I made balaclavas, but in college colors. And I would sell them to like enrich people. And I did this for about 2 years. I made over 70 different things, and it was super fun, but also quite tiring because I was making everything myself. But that was a huge learning experience for me because, well, aside from talking to people, marketing myself, trying to learn, what people like and dislike, because you can't please everybody, and some people will be like, oh, your prices are too high. Some people will be like, prices are too low, or they won't appreciate the work you put in. And the wool was actually quite expensive. So, and then I had to be aware of like how much time it took me to make one and how much money I was getting for that. And I was also ordering wool in batches. So I had to plan like, okay, what colors do I have? What polished colors can I make? And, like price things accordingly. So that was also another big project. And then I can talk about, some of the like my previous experience working at King, Meta, and Adobe. So I talked briefly about Adobe. I was like first time seeing how I can create software that was that could, or do research to see how to improve basic quality of life of artists. So then I realized making tools for artists is another way art and engineering can be related. At Meta, I did a lot of front end, a little bit of back end, a lot of React, and I was mainly I was a software engineer intern, and I did implement some things into their website. I was in Workplace, which is like Facebook, but for business, and it's on their website right now, which is very exciting. And then at King, I worked as a technical artist. So, the question is, what is a technical artist? It means, I think the role varies so differently depending on the company and the things that you do. So, it's commonly found in game companies, but also you can find them in other places. But the baseline of what most technical artists do is creating tools that can speed up and streamline the pipeline for artists and their development workflow, from creating assets to getting it into the final product. So that could be like, they need to draw things, but then they need to export it a lot of times, and then they need to rename everything, and then they have to get it from Figma to the game engine, and then we as technical artists can write, things that can easily allow artists to export from one thing to another. That's an example. And so they can focus on being creative and not having to think about all these technical things. But they're like beyond writing tools, which is what commonly technical artists do. There's also, you can be more specialized. So there's character or R&D technical artists. Character technical artists could like be more like 3D artists creating things to do with characters, like avatars, people, but 3D models of them. I mean, not limited to that. They can be rigging artists. They could like be the one setting up and figuring out how to create the skeleton. They could be technical animators. So they're very expert in knowing how to animate things. And as for these kind of roles, I'm not there's a lot of variation, and I'm still learning a lot of things. So currently I slowly learning, picking up more 3D skills because a lot of my art skills are on the 2D side. But also one thing to also think about for a lot of artists in the industry right now is how much AI would like replace a lot of the jobs and roles there. So something very specialized like something very specialized rigging or concept illustration and well, maybe not quite animating yet, but these things can be like potentially easily replaced in the next few years. So I would personally want to focus more on like how I can do more technical artistic things that can do the automation instead of being the one manually like rigging things and stuff. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you, Chen, for sharing your experiences and this inspiring presentation of your project. It was really inspiring. And actually, both projects you have undertaken are related to technical mastery and at the same time a valuable knowledge of creativity or the artistic creativity that you shared is so mixed together. So I really like your projects. These are more very creative, and also I saw that even two projects, an engineer project transferred to an artistic creative something in the end. You expanded it somehow by your way. So it seems that you can also work in team as a team member and individual. You are creating in any case. It was perfect. I first wondered when you were explaining about the project you did, especially on games. I wonder which tool you are using. Like I saw that Bodo, I think, and I don't know, Lucy or something. Which tools are you are using? And
I really like.
yeah.
Oh, I really like using Godot. Are you asking about the softwares I like using? Godot engine is great. It's open source. I'm a huge fan of like free software, free and open source. I really dislike subscription-based software. And even though like things like Unity and Real is free, they'll still have added costs somewhere down the line in the future. And the thing that I think holds me back from doing a lot of 3D software or 3D projects is because a lot of the stuff like Maya, ZBrush, Substance Painter, Adobe, they're all like paid software or subscription based. But I have been trying to learn some Blender, and Blender is also pretty cool. So most things open source I really like.
As an engineer, as a computer engineer.
Yeah.
So since you are a software engineer and at the same time you are in academia as a research engineer, could you compare how do the roles of being a software engineer and a research engineer differ?
Actually, so I in the past few weeks have been working on like continuing some work on my on the project I did for my master's, which was another thing I almost forgot to mention, was something that I tried to take within the art and engineering direction, and possibly the one of the most relevant or intertwined projects containing the two topics. So I was using hand gestures. Using machine learning, I can detect or classify the hand gesture you're doing at the current moment, and then use that to activate drawing commands with a real pen in virtual reality. So actually have the pen with me here because I'm in the lab. So I was working with this. I 3D printed this pen, and this at the top are like custom made at angled differently OptiTrack, so they're like motion tracked. This with a virtual reality headset, I can like draw like this, and this has no buttons on it, but like depending on how I hold the pen, it will activate the drawing commands and it will allow me to draw in virtual reality. So that kind of thing, I continued some work on that, and that was really fun. I love project-based stuff. I just really like working on projects, and as I guess here, research engineer, I get to work really hard on my own projects and really like take control of the whole project. It's definitely a lot more challenging in some ways in the fact that I don't it's not easy to ask my peers because there are no peers. Like, you know, how would you do this? Try and learn from other people around you, which you might do if you were like a new grad software engineer in a bigger company. But the cool thing is like I'm free to work on or take it in a direction I want to. I can take, make the decisions, and decide how to implement stuff. And I really own the whole project. And in my most recent project, which actually started today, which I'll be doing for the next couple months, is analyzing visual stress. Visual stress is like, and this is actually related to the more medical field because I'm working with a researcher who's interested in when things are really stripy at a certain frequency and distance, it can cause some people migraines and headaches. And this is obviously something that you want to avoid in architecture, where these unnatural buildings may have lots of lines that might have super high contrast and can cause people to feel visual discomfort. And you would obviously want to avoid that the most in the hospital. So we're working with like architects from hospital and possibly Addenbrooke's to try and develop. Well, I am in charge of developing a web application that you can potentially upload an image to. It will run the visual stress algorithm, tell you, okay, this area and this area, this window here is a little bit high visual stress. Maybe you want to redesign it. And hopefully this can be a cool tool for designers to use and improve their designs, or tell them, okay, this part I need to change, this part I need to change. And it requires, I guess, they liked me for some of my artistic skills because we're also studying chromaticity, like the color difference between 2 or 3 adjacent objects could be like super jarring. How can you make that look pretty but also not too visually stressful? So that's what I was working on, and I really enjoy it because I can basically own the project.
Yeah, this is something just for you, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks exciting. So, I was planning to ask you to provide us some sneak peek or teaser kind of thing for upcoming projects of you, and it was one of these, I think.
Yeah, this is my current project, just starting it now.
Yeah, perfect. And I'm sure that we can also have some advice for the students who will watch this video, and maybe they will be inspired by you, what you advise them, like what strategies or approach have you found most effective in your advanced career, or what you advise to the students who will watch this video.
I think definitely pursuing your own projects, and keep pursuing things that you're interested in. And maybe you have an interest outside of your current subject. If you're doing engineering, maybe you have an interest in a sport or a hobby, and that could totally be combined with with engineering in some way or another. Every time I pick up a new project, I always try and find something within that project, like that project needs a skill or something. Maybe it's a language or framework that I haven't learned before. And that would be kind of my excuse to learn something new. And it's always more fun to learn it within a new project. An example is like, aside from like me doing like art and engineering, like I have a friend that's really into fencing, and he was thinking, well, actually, he also studied podiatry. So, he was thinking, well, actually, what if he had an idea, of designing shoes that would be like really comfortable and good for people, but also good for fencing, which would be a really interesting challenge and really interesting mix of these two things that you would think that could be thought of together in the same space. And similarly, as a slightly different example, in Arcane, the show, one of the two writers of the script found another person who's a writer, but she was really into kung fu or martial arts. And so she found it so much easier and more intuitive to write the fight scenes and visualize them for the movie. So there's so many ways that two very different feeling disciplines can interact. So brainstorm some ideas, try and do something like that. And as for trying to balance that with university, I think it's always hard. University's a lot. But what helped me a lot in not getting too overwhelmed when there's so many things I want to do, and things also I have to prioritize, and then you maybe never end up having time to do different things, is to just like pick one thing, or just note down all the things that you want, turn them into like bite-sized completable tasks, and just focus on one thing at a time. At this current moment, you're doing one thing, and that's all you have to think about. You don't have to think about all the other stuff. And once you completed that, you can go on to the next thing. But I'll obviously always recalibrate like your priorities. What do you need to do? Because you don't want to be working on something that you're not supposed to be working on when there's something more important you have to work on. Let's do the next day or something. But that's always pretty hard. But yeah, go for projects that you enjoy, and the best way to learn new things is to find a project to do that requires that thing to learn.
The keyword of today is enjoy what you are doing, or find what you enjoy.
Yeah.
You know, like your field, I can really see from your eyes when you're explaining what you did. And we're gonna follow your work, your project. These are so inspiring, and we want to see more cute cats in any project. So thank you for these inspiring projects, this presentation. Thank you all so much for gracing up your presence and your expertise and your project today. We greatly appreciate your time and the valuable knowledge you have.
Awesome. Thank you so much.